Rose, her husband, and their daughter followed a crowd of refugees toward a checkpoint. When it was their turn, Rose's husband looked unusually nervous. The officer quickly became suspicious of him. The soldiers took him aside for inspection and soon found a wound on his body. The scene immediately descended into chaos. The soldiers began evacuating. Rose's daughter Anna had already gotten onto a vehicle. Rose could only run after it, shouting for Anna to wait for her at the stadium. A fighter jet suddenly roared overhead, followed by the sound of explosions. Rose had no choice but to take her injured husband into a nearby villa. After the bombing stopped, Rose told her husband to rest while she went to look for water. As she searched the house, she suddenly heard a noise nearby. Rose picked up a machete and cautiously approached. She found an elderly woman lying in the room. Rose turned and called for her husband. Then she saw a pool of blood on the floor and heard the growls of a zombie coming from another room. Rose quickly hid in a different room. Frantic pounding soon came from outside the door, followed by the elderly woman's screams next door. Rose rushed out. Her husband came charging out as well, while the elderly woman chased them from behind. Rose ran until she reached a dead end. Her husband lunged at her too, leaving her with no choice but to scream for help. Spears appeared just in time and shot the pursuing zombie dead. After recovering from the shock, Rose hugged Spears and begged him to help her find Anna. She told him she would do anything if he agreed to help. But Spears, the man who had just saved her, was actually a death row inmate. Not long before, several soldiers had been escorting him to a jail. Along the way, the soldiers forced the owner of a house to leave and went inside to rest. The checkpoint was short on manpower, so the other soldiers gradually left until only one remained to guard Spears. Spears claimed he needed to use the bathroom and began looking for a chance to escape. Meanwhile, a man walked alone through the chaotic streets, completely unaware of the sounds around him. His name was Ryan, and he was deaf and mute. A car suddenly sped past nearby. Ryan turned and saw a woman lying on the ground, unable to move. Her boyfriend Lance cursed at the driver and then ran off alone. Ryan had no idea what to do as the woman struggled to breathe. At that moment, a short-haired woman named Sun ran over and pulled Ryan away. Soon after they left, the woman on the ground began turning. Large numbers of survivors fled toward a checkpoint, only to be stopped by soldiers. By the time Sun and Ryan reached the area, Spears and Rose were already among the crowd. The civilians kept pushing forward until they broke through the soldiers' line and even forced the gate open. Everyone continued running for their lives. Meanwhile, Barbara was trying to find the road to the stadium and the safe zone. A man suddenly appeared beside her car and offered to travel with her. He said there were many zombies on the road and that he could protect her. Barbara agreed to let him into the car, but as soon as he got in, he ordered her to get out. Barbara immediately started cursing at him. When the man prepared to use force, she reminded him that the doors were still locked and she could not get out. After he unlocked the door, Barbara stepped out and kept cursing him. While Barbara and the man argued, William suddenly rushed over and started fighting him. Barbara used the opportunity to get back into the car and told them they had to take her with them when they left. Sun and the others happened to arrive nearby as well. After Sun got into the car, William immediately drove away. Spears and Rose reunited with Ryan. William drove Sun and Barbara toward the stadium. He told Sun not to be afraid and promised he would not assault her, repeatedly insisting that he was a good man. Sun stared at him in disbelief. Barbara, who had just received William's help, was willing to trust him. The three continued toward the stadium. A pickup truck kept following them, forcing William to turn onto a side road. Before they got far, a brick smashed through the window, and people armed with weapons attacked them from ahead. William prepared to accelerate through them, but a baby stroller suddenly appeared in the road. He could not avoid it and crashed into it. The car was not badly damaged, but the people behind them kept chasing and even threw a Molotov cocktail. The group finally escaped the ambush, only for a bicycle to become wedged in one of the wheels. Sun was afraid the other two might leave her behind. Only after they promised not to abandon her did she get out to remove it. As soon as the bicycle was pulled free, a zombie appeared behind them. They thought they had lost it, but the zombie suddenly lunged in front of the car again. William quickly drove off to get away from it. The zombie moved to the other side, smashed the window, and grabbed William by the neck. After escaping the zombie, they continued on. While they stopped to check the map, the pickup truck caught up again. William sped onto another side road and temporarily lost it. Not long afterward, a couple being chased by zombies knocked on the car and begged for help. The woman even offered sex in exchange for William letting them inside. William refused and drove away. After escaping the pursuit, the people in the car began drinking and singing. Then the pickup truck caught up again and repeatedly rammed their car. William became enraged and drove straight into the pickup. The two vehicles kept crashing into each other. In the chaos, no one noticed that the truck ahead had stopped in the road. After the crash, Barbara was thrown from the car and began turning. Sun quickly woke William, and the two got out and ran. The pickup driver was also dead, while the others inside the truck continued snarling. Elsewhere, Spears, Ryan, Rose, and Lance continued toward the stadium. They saw a mother and daughter sitting inside a car. Rose started to approach and ask whether they needed help, but Spears stopped her in time. He warned her that they might have a gun and told her not to approach carelessly. Noise soon came from ahead. The group crouched down to watch and saw two people being attacked by zombies. After the woman turned, she joined the group of zombies chasing the man. The group continued on until they reached a school. They found a wooden board wedged into the gap of an iron gate, removed it, and entered the school grounds. After walking through the hallways, they found a room where they could rest temporarily. Lance suddenly started playing the drums. Spears worried the noise would attract zombies and immediately stopped him. Footsteps then came from upstairs. Spears and Rose went up to check and found that the sound came from a child. Ryan immediately chased after him. The others had no choice but to follow, but the boy quickly disappeared. Spears believed there might be more people inside and argued that they should leave as soon as possible. Ryan and Rose insisted on continuing to search for the child. In the end, Spears told everyone to split up and move toward the exit while looking for the boy. If they could not find him, they would meet at the exit and leave. Rose and Ryan began searching through the building. When Ryan reached one room, he suddenly started gagging. Rose came closer and saw that the room was filled with bodies. She immediately threw up as well. Ryan suddenly ran off. By the time Rose reacted, he was already gone. Elsewhere, Spears and Lance returned to the room to retrieve the bags they had left behind, only to find that the bags were gone. Spears decided they needed to leave the school immediately. But when they reached the entrance, they found that the gate had been locked. They had no choice but to look for another exit. Along the way, Lance accidentally triggered a trap. An explosion went off, and the gate was locked shut as well. Rose walked alone through the dark hallway when a child's crying suddenly came from the distance. She followed the sound and discovered that it was coming from a speaker. Then laughter came through the speaker. Rose reached a door and tried to leave, only to find that it was locked too. Ryan, who had run away, found the boy. But there was also a group of armed young people with him. They captured Ryan and covered his head. Spears followed the distant laughter and knocking sounds and soon ran into Rose again. The two left together, only to encounter the group of young people around a corner. They held Ryan hostage and demanded that Spears hand over his handgun. Rose took Spears' gun and offered to exchange it for Ryan. The boy warned Ryan not to move, then removed the covering from his head. But Ryan could not hear the warning. When he saw Rose coming to rescue him, he walked directly toward her. The young people immediately ran away. Rose wanted to save Ryan, but Spears pulled her away. Ryan soon turned and chased after them. Just as they were unable to escape, an old man named Earl opened a door from outside. Spears and Rose finally escaped the school. As they left, someone watched them from the shadows. The boy then opened the door again and wedged the piece of wood back into the gap. Lance was left alone inside the school. He walked into the library and picked up a book but could not focus on it at all. After some time, he went up to the roof. A fighter jet flew overhead, startling Lance so badly that he fell to the ground. To get out of the school, he slid down a drainpipe. He fell when he reached the ground but still managed to make it down safely. As he reached the front of the school, he suddenly heard noise behind him. Lance turned and saw that a person who had fallen from the building had become a zombie and was chasing him. He immediately ran, climbing over a fence along the way. After a long chase, Lance finally lost the zombie, but he was still afraid to stop. He kept running until he reached an intersection, where he slowly came to a halt. The entire street was quiet, with no zombies anywhere in sight. Lance approached nearby houses and hoped someone would help him, but every door remained shut. He shouted, but never received an answer. Lance saw several cars parked along the road and started looking for one he could use. Most of them were damaged. He finally found an intact car, but he could not get it started. Lance had no choice but to continue walking down the street. A large yellow dog suddenly ran toward him from the distance. Lance tried to approach it, but the dog quickly moved away. He then reached a supermarket. The automatic doors still worked, and the supplies inside had not been looted. Lance collected a large amount of food. As he continued searching for supplies, the growl of a zombie suddenly came from nearby. Lance immediately hid and watched. A zombie had entered the supermarket through the automatic doors. Lance tried to slip past it from behind, but the zombie noticed him. He ran towards several school buses, circled around the zombie, and climbed onto one of the buses. The zombie could not climb up and remained below. Lance lay on the roof of the bus to rest and ended up falling asleep. When he woke up, he could no longer see the zombie. But when he reached the back of the bus, he discovered that it was still waiting there. Lance carefully climbed down from the front of the bus, jumped into another vehicle, and quickly escaped before the zombie could catch him. He ran into a nearby warehouse, and the zombie followed him inside again. Lance saw an axe on the wall and prepared to fight back. But a moment later, he had to run again and hide inside a bookstore across the way. Just as the zombie was about to find him, a man suddenly appeared and fought it. The man successfully killed the zombie but was bitten on the shoulder. When Lance saw the wound, he used a brick to kill the man who had just saved him. Elsewhere, Sun peeked out from a restaurant. William came out as well. The two had planned to continue toward the safe zone, but they found that they could not leave for the moment and had to remain in the restaurant. There was plenty of food inside, but the zombies outside still had them trapped. 3 other people were inside as well. They were Phil, Manny, and Carmen, survivors from the pickup truck. Although both groups were sheltering together, the tension between them was high. William accused the 3 of repeatedly ramming their car earlier, causing Barbara's death and preventing them from reaching the safe zone in time. Phil blamed the driver, who had already turned, and said the others had nothing to do with the collision. William did not want to work with them anymore. Phil argued that the world had already collapsed and everyone needed to cooperate if they wanted to escape. The argument went nowhere, so Phil suggested speaking with William alone. The two went into the kitchen while Sun secretly picked up a knife. William almost attacked Phil. Phil explained that he had not known the other two before and had simply gotten into their vehicle while fleeing. William temporarily backed down. Phil also said they would be safe once they reached the stadium. If the time came when someone had to be abandoned, the 2 middle-aged men were better fighters and could leave the younger people behind. William refused immediately. Sun had saved his life, and he would not abandon her. While they were talking, Sun noticed that the zombies outside had suddenly gone quiet. She lifted the curtain to look and saw the turned Barbara charge toward her. Sun quickly retreated into the restaurant. William and Phil came out of the kitchen as well. Phil suggested that all 5 of them deal with the 2 zombies outside together. Sun would bang on the glass to draw them over, while the others went outside with weapons to attack. She also secretly hid a bag of food. Sun repeatedly hit the glass, drawing the 2 zombies toward the window. The others went outside to attack them, but the plan failed. Sun quickly opened the door and let everyone retreat into the restaurant. Together, they managed to keep the 2 zombies outside again. The group began blaming one another, each claiming the others had failed to strike a vital area. Phil first suggested using food to lure the zombies away and then escaping. He and the other 2 went into the kitchen to discuss the details. When they came back out, they called William over alone. The new plan was to sacrifice one person to distract the zombies so the others could escape. The person they chose was Sun. Phil even brought up William's family at the stadium to persuade him to agree. William refused again and made it clear that he would not abandon Sun. He took off his coat, picked up the hammer he had used against the zombies, and returned to Sun's side. The 2 sides immediately faced off. At that moment, Sun noticed a wound on Phil's arm. If it had come from a zombie, he might turn. Phil quickly explained that he had only injured himself while hitting the door earlier. William and Sun did not believe him. Even the other 2 standing behind Phil began to hesitate. Phil immediately demanded that they throw Sun outside to feed the zombies. Manny eventually turned against Phil and attacked him. After Phil was beaten down, William told someone to open the door. They dragged Phil to the entrance and threw him outside. Elsewhere, Spears, Rose, and Earl continued toward the safe zone. Rose was already exhausted and began hallucinating, seeing Anna in front of her. Before long, Spears also became too weak from lack of food and water. He collapsed and asked to rest. Rose told him to get up and keep moving. She warned him that if he fell asleep, he might never wake up again. Earl then noticed a restaurant ahead. When they approached, they saw 2 zombies near the entrance. They hid behind a car and waited for an opportunity. While the zombies were distracted, Spears slowly moved closer and prepared to shoot. At that moment, the restaurant door suddenly opened, and Phil, who had been thrown outside, was crawling across the ground. Spears and the others immediately acted. Soon afterward, Spears' group reunited with the survivors inside the restaurant. After replenishing their food and supplies, everyone continued on. A few days later, they reached a temporary shelter established by soldiers. Soldiers on the roof spotted them. The group decided to split into two teams to enter the shelter. Rose and the others first appeared in front of the surveillance camera. After being inspected, they were allowed inside. The shelter was filled with survivors. Rose sat in one corner. Manny and Carmen had stayed there before, so they were able to move around freely. When no one was watching, Carmen also brought William and the others waiting outside into the shelter. Once inside, everyone went their separate ways. Spears killed a guard. Manny unlocked a door and led people into the armory to take equipment. Carmen brought William to the bar and secretly stabbed a man. After she left, the man quickly turned and began attacking the people around him. The infection rapidly spread through the bar. William then entered the electrical room, shut off the power, and locked the door. Elsewhere, a large man was forcing himself on Rose. Rose fought back desperately. Lance suddenly spoke up and stopped the man. Rose then discovered that Lance was also inside the shelter and was still alive. The large man started toward Lance, but the shelter's lights suddenly went out. Sounds of chaos also came from outside the door. The man sensed something was wrong, opened the door, and went outside. Rose immediately pulled Lance away and reunited with the others. By then, the entire shelter had descended into chaos. The narrow corridors were filled with survivors and zombies. The soldiers could barely protect themselves. Sun and Manny were escaping through the ventilation ducts with weapons when they were suddenly attacked. After gunshots rang out, Manny was hit and collapsed. Sun continued crawling toward the exit. Manny soon turned and came after her from behind, grabbing her ankle. Sun struggled desperately. Just as she was about to lose her grip, Spears arrived and shot the turned Manny. Sounds soon came from outside the door. The two grabbed their guns and hid. They then realized the approaching people were their teammates. The group reunited again. Carmen noticed that Manny had not returned. At that moment, loud noises and zombie growls suddenly came from outside. Everyone quickly looked for somewhere to hide. Spears went out to check and found two soldiers. After asking how many people were in the group, the soldiers said they could take them to the stadium. Everyone decided to follow them. Led by the soldiers, the group reached a restaurant and stopped to rest. They planned to continue at dawn and reach their destination before noon the next day. The two soldiers said the government had already sent fighter jets to clear the zombie-infested areas and that the situation was gradually coming under control. The first group of survivors would also soon be evacuated to an uninhabited area. Everyone was happy to hear the news except Carmen, who kept crying. She already knew Manny was dead. The two soldiers began questioning Spears and became suspicious of his identity. Spears only said that he had survived through luck. After everyone went to sleep, Rose woke in the middle of the night and discovered that Spears and the two soldiers were gone. She followed the passage and found Spears tied up. The two soldiers exposed Spears' real identity in front of her. He was an escaped death row inmate. These were the same soldiers who had previously taken part in transporting him. After the other soldiers left back then, Spears killed the soldier guarding him and escaped. Now they had met again. The two soldiers believed he deserved to be punished. Spears argued that order outside had already collapsed. They were also just survivors and had no real ability to escort the others. After hearing both sides, Rose chose to trust Spears, who had traveled with her all this time. She and Spears took the soldiers' equipment and returned to where the others were resting. When they were questioned, Rose only said the two soldiers had been bitten by zombies. Without anyone to escort them, the group had to rely on themselves to continue toward the safe zone. They distributed the weapons and set out again. At that moment, a large yellow dog suddenly appeared. Earl put a collar on the dog and then left alone with it. The others continued toward the safe zone. The closer they got to the stadium, the more survivors appeared around them, and almost everyone was armed. Zombies kept charging from every direction, forcing the crowd to fight its way forward with gunfire. A woman approached a fallen zombie and kept shooting, only to be attacked by another zombie. The others immediately opened fire. In the chaos, one bullet accidentally hit Carmen. Not long after they continued on, Carmen suddenly stopped. She touched the blood on her clothes and then coughed up black blood. The people around her immediately backed away. Carmen quickly turned and attacked the nearest survivor, sending the scene into chaos again. Lance was also separated from Sun and Spears in the confusion. At another intersection, Sun and Spears stopped while survivors and zombies rushed everywhere behind them. A curly-haired woman nearby fired at a zombie in front of her but accidentally shot a man with a buzz cut behind it. Sun froze for a moment, then shot and killed the wounded man. A huge explosion followed. The powerful shockwave left both of them dizzy. It appeared the military had begun bombing the area. Spears pulled Sun up and kept running. Meanwhile, the separated Lance was still being chased by large numbers of zombies. Sun and the others continued running through the fighting. After the group reunited, they had barely fought off one wave of zombies when another horde came after them. William had suffered a serious leg injury and could barely move even with someone helping him. He repeatedly begged Rose to shoot him and end his life. Rose eventually did. The survivors left William's body behind and quickly ran through the iron gate ahead. They managed to lock it before the zombie horde arrived. The three temporarily escaped the danger. Their original group of 7 had now been reduced to 3. They did not dare stop and continued forward, hoping to catch up with the evacuation group. Once inside the stadium, however, they saw almost no zombies. The 3 soon reached the stands. Below them was a huge soccer field, but there was no one else anywhere in the stadium. A man suddenly stepped out from an exit in the stands. Both sides immediately raised their guns. After seeing that the others knew how to use firearms, the man lowered his weapon first. A little girl then stepped out from behind him. Rose finally saw Anna again. Elsewhere, Lance, who had been separated from the group, was siphoning gasoline from one car. He carried the gasoline to another vehicle and prepared to pour it in. A zombie suddenly charged toward him. Lance quickly got into the car and drove away. Along the way, a woman named Sophie suddenly stepped into the road and begged for help, shouting that she was pregnant. After hearing that, Lance eventually opened the door. Sophie got inside and repeatedly thanked him while secretly unlocking the door. A man suddenly appeared and shot Lance in the neck. The two threw Lance onto the roadside and drove away in his car. But blood on the windshield blocked their view, and the vehicle crashed not long after they drove off. The two had no choice but to get out and run. Lance, who had been shot, quickly turned and chased after them. The turned Lance kept pursuing the man who had shot him. The man climbed into a vehicle and sped away, but Lance jumped onto the roof. The vehicle kept accelerating, but no matter how sharply the man turned, he could not shake Lance off. Later, the turned Lance moved toward other living people. He stopped in front of a pane of glass and looked at his own reflection. Elsewhere, 2 men were collecting supplies inside a supermarket. Anna suddenly called for help from outside. The 2 men saw her standing there alone and opened the door to let her in. They told her not to be afraid and gave her a bottle of water. While the 2 continued gathering supplies, Anna quietly went to the back door and let several people inside. The people who entered were Spears, Rose, and the others. They came into the supermarket with guns, forced the 2 survivors outside, and took control of the supplies. But the apocalypse had already been going on for some time, and there was little food or useful material left in the store. After searching through what remained, Rose prepared to leave with Anna. Once they stepped outside, they discovered that someone had siphoned the gasoline from their vehicle through a hose. The tank was completely empty. They had no choice but to continue on foot. Along the way, the group found a crashed vehicle by the roadside. After confirming that the people inside were dead, they immediately searched the car for supplies. They even removed warm clothing from the bodies. Winter had already arrived, making the clothing another important resource. A nearby zombie was still coming toward them. Before long, zombie growls and continuous gunfire suddenly came from the distance. Spears told Rose to take Anna and go ahead while he and Sun stayed behind. Armed men in a black vehicle behind them spotted the group and immediately got out to search for them. Judging by their equipment, they were clearly not ordinary survivors. Rose and Anna hid in the darkness but were still found by one of the armed men. Gunfire suddenly erupted outside and drew his attention away. The mother and daughter used the chance to escape their hiding place. After Rose, Anna, and Sun ran out, they soon found Spears lying injured on the ground. The gunfire they had heard had come from his position. Sun hurried over to help him while Rose continued on with Anna. Spears was too badly injured to walk, and the armed men were closing in. Sun had no choice but to push him into a nearby pit and stay outside to draw the attackers away. Spears avoided being found, but Sun was taken away. After climbing out from among the zombies, Spears could only press a hand over his wound and keep moving. In the extreme cold, he wore thin clothing and had no supplies or weapons. After walking for some time, he became too weak and stopped to rest. Then he noticed a figure approaching from behind. Spears was forced to get up again. His injuries slowed him down, and the person soon caught up. Spears then saw that the man was a survivor named Braithwaite. He kept moving faster until he eventually reached the top of a hill. When he looked back, Spears lost his footing and rolled down the snowy slope. Fortunately, the snow was deep, and the fall did not injure him further. When he stopped, he noticed several zombies lying around him. The zombies were almost frozen solid by the cold and could only make faint growling sounds. It appeared they had fallen down the slope as well. Spears saw that one of the zombies was wearing gloves and took them off its hands. When he looked up, Braithwaite was standing at the top of the hill. After seeing that Braithwaite was still following him, Spears walked directly toward him. Elsewhere, Rose and Anna had been walking through the snow for a long time before they finally found a villa. There was almost no one else nearby, so the mother and daughter immediately approached the house. Along the way, Rose fired at a zombie but missed completely, attracting it toward them instead. She immediately pulled Anna toward the villa. When they reached the door, they found it locked. They had to keep knocking while defending themselves from the zombie. Rose fired again. This time she hit it, but the shot did not stop the zombie from coming closer. Just as it was about to reach them, the door finally opened. Once inside, Rose discovered 6 people in the house, 3 men and 3 women. They first had Rose and Anna sit beside the stove to warm themselves. Rose and Anna kept their gun beside them the entire time. The people in the house appeared to be ordinary survivors, not armed attackers like the ones they had encountered before. An elderly woman asked where Rose and Anna had come from and where they were going. Rose only said they had come from the city and planned to continue north. Another woman said that in temperatures this low, staying inside the house was at least safer than remaining outdoors. During the conversation, Rose learned that none of the people inside actually owned the villa. A few days earlier, Mark and his girlfriend Rhonda had arrived first with an elderly woman. Later, they allowed Freddie, Sonny, and their mother to move in after they came asking for help. After learning that Mark could use a radio to contact supply drops, Sonny urged him to look for more supplies. Their mother also wanted Mark to bring back medicine for her skin condition. The food in the house would not last another 2 days. Now that Rose and Anna had joined them, Mark decided to go out and look for supplies. The supplies were dropped by aircraft, so he had to travel to the drop zone and search for the supply crates. After Rhonda made contact over the radio, Sonny suggested that someone should go with Mark. But he did not offer anyone from his own family. Rose also refused to go. Mark eventually decided to leave alone on a motorcycle. Before long, zombies began chasing him outside. Back at the villa, everyone else continued eating and playing cards beside the stove. When Mark still had not returned, Sonny began suspecting that he had taken the supplies and fled. He pointed a gun at Rhonda and forced her to contact Mark over the radio again. The firewood in the stove was also running low. Freddie and Sonny's mother suggested sending Anna outside to collect more wood because the girl was small and could move around more easily. Rose refused immediately and said a job like that should be done by the stronger men. She even threatened to shoot anyone who tried to force her and Anna outside. The mother had no choice but to drop the idea and send her older son Freddie out to gather wood instead. Freddie had barely left the house when a zombie chased him, forcing him to climb a tree to hide. Inside the house, Sonny again forced Rhonda to use the radio to contact the outside because neither Mark nor Freddie had returned. Rhonda had already begun to suspect that something might have happened to Mark. She tried to kill Sonny while he was distracted, but Sonny shot her first. A few seconds later, Rhonda got back up as a zombie. The people downstairs heard the commotion and rushed to stop her. The elderly woman who had arrived with Mark and Rhonda moved too slowly and was knocked down and bitten by the zombie. Sonny and his mother kept firing, but they still could not stop it. Rose finally arrived and shot the zombie in the head. By then, both Rhonda and the elderly woman who had come with her were dead. The survivors fell silent. Rose and Anna went back to the side of the room. Sonny ran upstairs and tried to use the radio. He did not know how to operate it. So he eventually smashed the equipment and ran back downstairs, accusing Rose and Anna of stealing the weapons. After that, Rose was finally able to rest with Anna. But there was actually another survivor hiding somewhere inside the mansion. Elsewhere, Mark had been captured by a group of armed raiders while searching for the airdrop. Their leader, Ray Nazary, forced Mark to reveal the location of his shelter, how many people there were, and how many supplies they had left. Mark told him that he lived in a mansion with several other survivors. Their supplies were almost gone, which was why he had gone out looking for an airdrop. Ray kept asking where the airdrop was. Mark did not know the exact location and could only offer to lead them in the search. At the raiders' camp, another woman was tied to a tree. It was Sun, who had been captured earlier. Sun noticed someone moving through the grass nearby. A gunshot suddenly rang out, and the two groups immediately opened fire on each other. The area quickly descended into chaos. The people who were killed began turning into zombies, and Mark was also shot during the firefight. Ray saw that the situation was getting out of control and immediately retreated with Sun and the men he had left. At that moment, the roar of an airplane came from above. It appeared to be the airdrop plane Mark had mentioned. Ray got on a motorcycle and escaped under cover from his men. A pickup truck continued chasing him, but it soon became stuck in the snow and could not go any farther. Ray kept fleeing with Sun and the rest of his men. Only a few miles later, they were ambushed by another group, and their vehicle was overturned by gunfire. Back at the original battlefield, things gradually became quiet. After several survivors finished clearing out the zombies, they discovered that Mark was still alive and began asking him about the airdrop. Mark said he was thirsty and asked for water first. As they were about to give him some, Mark suddenly turned into a zombie and lunged at the person in front of him. Elsewhere, Freddy had spent the entire night hiding in a tree. When morning came, he saw that the zombie was gone. He immediately climbed down, picked up the wood, and headed back to the mansion. But when he reached the front door, the same zombie came after him again. The door opened, and the barrel of a gun appeared first. Freddy quickly begged the people inside to let him in. The person who opened the door was Rose. When Rose and Anna had first arrived there, Freddy had been the one who let them inside. After entering the mansion, Freddy saw several bodies lying on the floor. Several of the other survivors in the house were dead, including his mother and younger brother. Freddy said nothing because Rose was still pointing a gun at him. He placed the wood he had brought back beside the fireplace and then asked Rose not to throw him out. Rose agreed to let him stay, but only if he cleared the bodies out of the house first. Freddy had no choice but to do it. At that moment, a zombie suddenly began snarling outside the back door. Rose took her gun and went to the window. A survivor had been chased up to the house by a zombie, but the zombie was caught behind the wire fence. A gunshot suddenly rang out, and the zombie dropped. The rescued survivor repeatedly thanked whoever had fired from upstairs. Meanwhile, Ray had gathered more men. Using the information he had gotten from Mark, they found the mansion where Rose was staying. As they approached, the zombies wandering outside noticed them. After a burst of gunfire, the zombies were killed, but the shots also gave away their position. Ray learned that 4 bodies with head wounds had just been dragged outside, so he believed there were only 3 people left inside. Ray pushed Sun forward and made her walk toward the house carrying a strip of cloth to get the attention of the people inside. He also ordered his men to shoot her immediately if she tried to escape. Sun had no choice but to obey. When she reached the front of the mansion, she discovered that Rose and Anna were inside. Rose also saw Sun and the raiders outside. She immediately told Anna to find somewhere to hide, then took out the few bullets she had left and prepared to defend the mansion. Freddy suggested that she put down her weapon and surrender. He thought the people outside might only want to take the house. The raiders also shouted into the mansion, ordering everyone to come out with their hands on their heads and claiming they would not kill them. Rose did not believe them and still chose to remain inside. The raiders soon opened heavy fire on the mansion. Several of them reached the door, and Freddy was shot during the firefight. Rose helped the wounded Freddy into the basement. At the same time, Ray and his men had already broken into the mansion. But the other group of survivors who had attacked Ray earlier also arrived. The two armed groups quickly started shooting at each other again, and the gunfire attracted nearby zombies. Several people were killed or wounded in the fighting, while others entered the basement looking for supplies. By then, Freddy had already turned into a zombie. The people who entered the basement were attacked by him one after another. The sound of another plane came from outside. A new airdrop had appeared. Ray's men also discovered that there were few useful supplies inside the mansion, so they began leaving to search for the airdrop. Rose and Anna hid inside a room and climbed into the bathtub. Rose only had a few bullets left. 2 armed raiders were about to enter the bathroom when a man named Boone suddenly appeared in the doorway. The 2 raiders saw that Boone was unarmed and did not shoot immediately. At the same time, the sound of the plane outside grew louder. The 2 men abandoned their search and left. Facing Rose's gun, Boone immediately raised both hands. He explained that he had been hiding on the mansion's 2nd floor. He also claimed that he knew where the airport was and could take Rose and Anna there. If they could still catch the plane, they would have a chance to leave. Rose did not immediately believe Boone. Boone then said that he worked at the airport, that the pilot dropping the airdrops was his friend, and that he was even wearing clothing similar to a flight suit. Rose kept her gun raised and made Boone walk in front. After confirming that it was safe outside, the three left the mansion. The two groups that had been fighting had already been drawn away by the plane, and there were no other living people left inside. Elsewhere, Spears picked up a snack wrapper from the ground and poured the last few crumbs into his mouth. It did nothing to ease his hunger. He walked toward an overturned car nearby, hoping to find supplies. Suddenly, he heard a vehicle behind him. Spears immediately hid in the bushes. After the vehicle stopped, a stranger got out and checked the overturned car. Even though Spears was extremely hungry, he did not ask the stranger for help. Only after the vehicle drove away did he return to the road. He soon noticed Braithwaite, who had been following him earlier, standing not far away. Spears immediately pulled out his only knife. Braithwaite said he meant no harm and only thought Spears looked familiar. He took a drink from his own bottle, then handed it to Spears. Spears took the bottle and drank from it several times. Braithwaite said he might know Spears but could not remember his name or who he was. Spears also did not remember ever meeting him. Both men were traveling alone, so they decided to stay together for the time being. They continued through the forest. A noise suddenly came from the trees ahead, and a rabbit appeared. In the apocalypse, even a rabbit was valuable food. Both men immediately stopped. Braithwaite took out his sniper rifle and prepared to shoot. Spears said he was the better shot. Braithwaite did not hand him the rifle. Before either of them could fire, the rabbit ran away. They had no choice but to keep walking. Before long, they found a zombie pinned beneath a fallen tree. A backpack full of supplies was still hanging from its back. Spears killed the zombie with a rock, and Braithwaite searched the backpack. Inside were a bottle of liquor, a handgun, and a tool that could be used to start a fire by drilling wood. Since Braithwaite already had a sniper rifle, he gave the handgun to Spears. The two decided to spend the night there. Braithwaite asked Spears to gather some firewood. He then tried to start a fire using a method he had learned from movies, but he could not get it to work. Spears removed a bullet from the handgun, poured out the gunpowder, and finally managed to start the fire. That night, the two sat around the fire drinking. Because they still had no food, Braithwaite took out a piece of chocolate he had been saving for a long time and prepared to share it with Spears. Spears told him that he was allergic to chocolate and could not eat it. Hearing that, Braithwaite suddenly recognized him. Spears' brother was Brother Chen, a gang leader in Tongshan, and Braithwaite remembered that Brother Chen's younger brother was allergic to chocolate. Spears did not deny it. Spears said that because his brother was a gang leader, he later became a street thug. That identity caused him a series of problems. He was eventually captured by soldiers and became caught up in the zombie outbreak. The two talked late into the night and eventually fell asleep beside the fire. Rain suddenly began falling in the middle of the night. Braithwaite noticed a group of zombies nearby and immediately woke Spears. He told Spears that there was a cabin nearby with enough supplies to feed them for a year, along with weapons and ammunition for 2 people. Spears agreed to go with him. The two immediately ran toward the cabin as the zombies chased them from behind. The zombies seemed even more aggressive at night. Before long, the two finally saw the cabin. Braithwaite, who was running behind Spears, was suddenly knocked down by a zombie. Spears stopped for a moment, then turned around and shot the zombie, saving him. The two made it inside the cabin and shut the door. The next morning, they went to a pavilion outside the cabin. Braithwaite suddenly spotted a horse passing along the riverbank in the distance. Elsewhere, several survivors had been walking through the freezing snow for a long time. Starving, they finally found an airdrop crate. Just as they were about to open it, an armed man named Sam appeared and forced them at gunpoint to keep opening the crate. Once it was open, Sam demanded that they first move the entire airdrop crate to the top of the mountain before dividing the supplies. Because Sam had a gun, the others had no choice but to obey. The crate weighed several hundred pounds. They tied ropes around themselves and dragged it forward, lifting it together whenever they reached uneven ground. As they climbed the mountain, they quickly became exhausted, but Sam kept pushing them from behind. Along the way, the 2 women higher up could no longer handle the weight, and one section of rope suddenly snapped. A man in the middle named Mance immediately used his knife to cut the rope attached to himself. Sam and another man with braids, who were lower down, were dragged all the way back down the mountain. When Sam woke up, he found that his leg was injured and could only wrap it quickly. He took 2 bags from the scattered supplies and crawled over to some rocks for cover. Before long, a zombie had already crawled up behind him. Meanwhile, Ray's group found another airdrop crate. Sun was still tied up with a rope. Just as Ray and the others reached the crate, 3 armed survivors appeared on the opposite side. Ray's group had 4 people, but only 3 of them had guns. The old man on the other side demanded that the supplies be split evenly. Ray insisted that his group choose first and that the others could take whatever remained. Sun and Sophie, who was traveling with them, opened the crate. Everyone discovered that it was filled entirely with weapons. Ray and his men immediately began choosing what they wanted. The old man suddenly stepped aside and shot one of Ray's men dead. Both sides immediately raised their guns at each other. The old man then demanded that his group choose the weapons first. Ray refused to back down. Still tied up, Sun worried that the 2 sides would start shooting and quickly urged them to stop, but no one listened. Several zombies suddenly rushed toward them from a distance. Ray kept his gun raised and said they could all die together if necessary. The old man's group had no choice but to turn and shoot the zombies first. By the time they killed the zombies, Ray had his gun pressed against the old man's head. The 2 sides were once again locked in a standoff. Sun then picked up a bag of weapons that had already been selected and handed it to the old man's group. She also gave the old man a look. The old man immediately left with the other 2 survivors. Elsewhere, Rose, Anna, and Boone were still searching for shelter in the snow. Their destination was still the airport. But after walking through the deep snow in the forest for a long time, they still had not found the place Boone had described. Their food was also gone. If they could not find shelter soon, the 3 of them might freeze to death in the snow. Boone continued to insist that the shelter was nearby. Rose took Boone away from Anna and prepared to shoot him. Boone repeatedly begged for his life and insisted that he had not lied. Just as Rose was about to fire, Anna came over. Anna thought Boone might still know something and said they should not kill him yet. Rose eventually lowered the gun and handed Boone the heavy backpack to carry. The 3 continued searching. After walking for a long time, they finally spotted a building ahead. Boone immediately became excited when he saw it. Once they entered, they discovered that the place was extremely clean. It had electricity, and the kitchen was stocked with large amounts of food. The entire building looked almost untouched by looters. They searched the building and did not find any zombies for the time being. They each found a room to wash up and rest. After taking a hot shower, Rose quickly fell asleep. The next morning, Anna woke up early. She suddenly heard footsteps in the hallway and saw a shadow pass beneath the door. Anna immediately picked up her gun and went to Boone's room first. Boone was still asleep. Anna then continued searching the hotel. When they had first checked the place the day before, they had found no zombies. But when Anna reached another room, she discovered that someone had locked a zombie inside. At the same time, Rose woke up and realized Anna was gone. She immediately went out to look for her. When Rose found Anna, she unexpectedly saw Spears, whom she had not seen in a long time. Later, the group had a large dinner at the hotel, something they had not enjoyed in a long time. As Spears ate, he kept looking at Rose, who had abandoned him earlier. Rose did not explain much. Boone kept eating and drinking beside them. During dinner, they disagreed about what to do next. Boone wanted to stay at the hotel and live there safely for several months. Anna insisted that they could not stay there waiting to die and that they still needed to go to the airport. Boone had also previously promised to take Rose and Anna to another city for shelter. After saying that they still needed to go to the airport, Anna took her gun and left the table. Night gradually fell, and Boone drank heavily. Rose later apologized to Spears, but she still said that she had been protecting Anna at the time and did not believe her decision had been wrong. She also said that apart from Anna, no one else mattered to her now. Spears did not pursue the issue and only said it was in the past. Rose then got up to get dessert. Not long afterward, Anna went over to Spears. Spears told Anna that after being badly wounded last time, he no longer wanted to keep living this way. He said he had no one waiting for him and did not know what had kept him going this far. If he could stay at the hotel permanently, that would not be bad for him. But he did not want to become a zombie or die at the hands of another survivor. He wanted Anna to end his life for him. Anna listened in tears and said she respected his decision. In the kitchen, Rose suddenly heard a gunshot and immediately ran out. By the time she arrived, Spears was dead. Anna was the one who had fired the shot. Anna only told her mother that it was time for them to leave. Rose, Anna, and Boone then set out again. Elsewhere, 2 women were carefully moving through an area of the airport where zombies were active. A zombie suddenly began chasing them. Mance appeared in time and held the zombie back. The 2 women then followed Mance around a corner and hid. The pursuing zombie did not see them and soon ran in another direction. After briefly introducing themselves, the 3 prepared to leave together. At that moment, a bullet suddenly flew toward them and struck the woman wearing blue. She was badly wounded. The woman with her did not abandon her and prepared to treat the wound. When Mance saw that she had been shot, he immediately backed away several steps. A few seconds later, the wounded woman suddenly turned into a zombie and attacked the companion who was helping her. Elsewhere, Boone separated from Rose and Anna and was soon captured by other survivors. The people who caught him were the old man and his group who had fought Ray over the airdrop, along with 2 other mercenaries. Boone led them to the airport and told them everything he knew. In exchange, he asked the old man to let him go. The old man did not keep his promise and shot Boone instead. The bullet did not hit Boone in the head. After Boone died, he quickly turned into a zombie. Rose and Anna had also reached the airport by then. The two were still arguing over Spears' death. Only when a zombie appeared did they immediately run. They hid in a corner and successfully lost the zombie. Right afterward, Rose saw 2 familiar people. One was Sun, whom she had been separated from for a long time. The other was Ray, who had once hunted Rose and Anna. Rose immediately told Anna to unload her own gun and hide the bullets. Rose then stepped out to ask for help, lying that both of their guns were empty. Ray remained cautious. Sun also recognized Rose but said nothing, pretending they did not know each other. Rose said that she still had some food in her backpack and asked to travel with them. Another woman in the group opened the backpack and checked it. Rose then quietly moved behind Ray and suddenly pulled out her gun. Just as she was about to fire, someone behind her pointed a gun at her. The person holding the gun was a white-bearded old man wearing a pink hat. Several more survivors then appeared inside the warehouse. 2 of the mercenaries had originally been Ray's men, but they were now on the old man's side. The 2 immediately rushed forward and started beating Ray. This was the same old man who had fought Ray over the airdrop, and he was now in control of the situation. The old man ordered one of his long-haired men to stand guard outside. The man did not want to go, but he eventually went outside to keep watch. The others in the warehouse continued beating Ray. Rose, Anna, and Sun could only stand nearby. One of the men even injured his own finger during the beating. The old man then told Anna to find a first aid kit. When Anna returned, she secretly handed Rose a flare gun. Rose quietly hid it. By then, Ray's face was covered in blood. The old man then told one of his men to bring back the guard outside. At that moment, several zombies suddenly broke into the warehouse. Everyone inside was immediately thrown into chaos. Sun and the others took the opportunity to escape from the warehouse and shut the door behind them. Ray, his face covered in blood, also got hold of a gun again and aimed it at one of the women. Everyone knew the plane only had room for 2 or 3 people. Their temporary cooperation was no longer possible. At that moment, a plane began descending toward the airport. Everyone turned their attention to it. Rose seized the opportunity, pulled out the flare gun she had hidden, aimed it at Ray, and pulled the trigger. A shot rang out, followed by an explosion that threw both Rose and Ray to the ground. A piece of metal pierced Rose's leg. Sun and Anna were unhurt. They immediately went to help Rose up and prepared to head for the plane. Rose quickly saw that her leg was badly injured. She told Anna and Sun to leave immediately and stop worrying about her. Anna refused to leave her mother behind. Rose had no choice but to pick up a handgun, point it at herself, and force Anna to leave. Seeing her mother pointing the gun at herself, Anna finally ran toward the plane with Sun. The other woman who had escaped with them also followed. At the same time, another group of zombies poured out of the nearby warehouse. When the woman saw the zombies getting closer, she suddenly pushed Sun on purpose. But in the end, the zombies caught the woman instead. Anna kept running toward the plane. Sun repeatedly urged her to get on, but Anna suddenly changed direction and ran back toward Rose. Sun had no choice but to board the plane alone. As Anna was chased across the ground by zombies, the plane began taking off. So many survivors had reached the airport, but in the end, Sun was the only one who made it onto the plane. After boarding, Sun was surprised to discover that the pilot could understand her. The two soon began talking. Meanwhile, Mance appeared again and drew the zombies chasing Anna toward himself. He held off the group alone and killed them one by one. After killing all the zombies, Mance sat on the ground and quietly looked around. Elsewhere, the wounded Rose was still lying on the ground. Ray had also survived the explosion, although he was badly injured. Both of them struggled to pick up their guns and aimed at each other from a distance. Neither fired. As the standoff continued, Anna ran back. Only then did Rose learn that Anna had not boarded the plane. Anna saw the two adults still pointing guns at each other. She found a vehicle nearby and drove it over. This brought season 2 of Black Summer to an end.